Now it should be better, right?
Yes.
Very
Hello
good.
and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, everyone, whoever is going to watch us live and record it. Welcome to the Moreness Live.
Yes, yes, yes. Hello, everybody. Hello, and
Hello,
welcome.
Grain.
It's great to be here.
Yes.
Great to be here.
Oh, yes, it is great to be
Wonderful.
here, and it's good to see you in very formal dressing today, which is very good.
Or more formal. I wouldn't say very formal, then I'd have a tie on, but more formal. Yes.
Yes.
Well, the reason for that is that on LinkedIn, I was approached to be on a board member of some kind, and we're going to be talking with them and find out what all this is about. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. So,
Yes, we will see. We will see.
yeah,
Anyway, so while Sil is busy doing the very
sharing.
complicated, yes, yes, it's a sharing process, but it is complicated.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, not for
yeah,
him because he is doing it every day, but it
yeah.
requires a lot of attention and focus.
Right.
And this is something I just want to, because this is the top thought of the day. I don't know how, but okay, this is focus, attention, and practice, which makes things simple.
Yeah,
Of course, in other words, you establish or you designed a program or you incorporate a program in your body and also into your awareness that how these things are going to be every day.
yeah,
So, yes, these are habits, but these are deliberate habits. And that is a
yeah,
qualifier.
yeah,
I always need that because we had this thing whenever still say, oh, still, well, habits are really our enemy. And I was like, no, this is energy efficient because these are programs we develop.
yeah.
And but it was, of course, I was not paying attention to the qualifier that it has to be deliberate habits, which we
There you go.
deliberately
Yeah,
acquire. What is the difference between deliberately acquired habits and the normal habits for me? First thing is that deliberate habits can be updated at any point in the life.
there
But the
you go.
regular habits, you get really you can become a slave of those habits. That okay, yeah,
Right.
this is what I do. This is how it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
This is what it is. This is how we actually express about habits. Once we get
yeah,
into that, it is a different kind of addiction. Okay, we
yeah,
get like, oh yes, now I'm on the mercy of my habits because this is how I do
yeah.
things. But
And you're not
deliberately,
even aware of them half the time. They start, and
yes,
then that's
yeah, it is
the
what it
real
is.
problem. Yeah,
Exactly. And but the deliberately acquired habits always go with some conditional conditions there in it.
yeah,
Yes, I'm doing it because this is I'm choosing. This is appropriate. This is a well thought mechanism I'm
yes,
putting into my system. And sometimes, of course, it is not just in our awareness, also in our body, which is really interesting for me
absolutely. Yeah,
because it's easy when your things are just in your awareness. You can change it. At
yeah,
least this is what I have done. But once it
yeah,
gets into your physical being, then your muscle memory, then your whole body memory
yeah,
keeps
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And then you when you are not aware even, it just go on the process. This is where things get really difficult. But this is the magic of way of impeccability for me. When you set your intent, clear intent, deliberately set intent that I'm choosing this. This is how I'm
yeah,
choosing in this appropriate circumstances for this, and it is going to be updated at any point in my life. Then your body, your muscles, your gut, whatever, always keep that memory also with it. So then it becomes very
yes,
easy to change
yes,
that. That's why clarity of intent is the
yes.
biggest life-changing game, like really game changer in my
Oh
life.
yeah, oh yeah,
Because once you said that, we assume that, oh, it was not even in my thoughts. Oh, I was not even aware. I was not
yeah,
even remembering
yeah,
it. But your
yeah,
subconscious is not going to let it go like that. So the clarity
yeah,
of intent is the real game changer in the
yeah,
transformation. When you start doing things with the clear intent, then things can be in your control. You will not be in control of them. And you can
right,
change and
right,
update and edit at any point in your life.
yeah.
So this is the
And there's something
magic.
else.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Oh,
Please go ahead.
go ahead. Oh,
No. I
something
was just
else very
wrapping it up.
important. All right,
Yes.
very important. Yeah, and that is I forgot to start IG. Oh, sorry, IG. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, IG, you missed all of Beena's points about habit. So hello, IG people. Beena was just talking about the difference between regular habit and deliberate habit, which is a major part of way of impeccability. Dealing with habits in general and instituting deliberate habits. And she was saying a deliberate habit you can let go anytime because it's always deliberate. It's only a habit because you do it repeatedly, but you don't do it automatically. It's always deliberate. The other major difference between regular habits and deliberate habits, well, typically, I mean, it could be that you have a regular habit that's an abstract habit. But abstract habit, what I mean is the habit of being attentive. See, it's hard to imagine a case where that would be a negative, right? Where in what circumstance would not being attentive be of benefit to you? And if you are appropriately attentive and you don't want to be attentive, then you can switch it off. You can practice the emphasis. Right. See what I mean? So it's an overview, quality, being, perspective, attitude, understanding, or awareness, typically, deliberate habits, right? The habit of being honest, the habit of being thoughtful, the habit of thinking things through to the end, the habit of perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. All of these are profoundly life-changing abilities, qualities, attitudes, mindsets, and awarenesses, etc. As opposed to regular habits, which is like which way you stir your coffee. Do you stir it clockwise, counterclockwise? Which way do you hold the spoon? Do you have it hollow space facing you, hollow away, whatever? See what I mean? Those they don't really matter. They all they do is they yes, you save a bit of attention doing that, but the price you pay is that you live doing things that you don't really pay attention to. Yeah, and that's the key. The key is attention management, which is energy management. And the key too is being alive. When we are doing things deliberately, we're alive. That's really the essential element of being alive, at least when you say I'm alive, right? Not just technically, okay, something's alive. Yeah. Like the amoeba, it may technically be alive, but there's no deliberateness to it. Yeah. When you are truly living, capital L living, it's all about being deliberate. Make sense, Beena? Make sense?
Yes.
Ah, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I just wanted to make that qualification, that clarity there, in terms of difference. Yeah. Does that help, Beena? Does that add to what you were saying?
Help in which sense, sir?
Just as an extra deeper
Oh,
clarification.
okay.
That's what you were saying. I'm just saying the same thing in a different way.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
want to know
Yes.
if it
Yes.
resonates. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And hopefully Beena going to read today. I've been reading the last while now, but I'd like
Just
to.
a week.
I enjoy Beena reading. I enjoy Beena
Just a
reading.
week.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It just, for me, a week is like a month or longer even. So, okay. Did I share this one or did I share my whole screen? I think I shared the whole screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to do the structural analysis today, which is Carlos, and it's quite long actually. So he shared about, the book is very short actually, 80 up to this point, 85 pages, right? And he's talking about the first 5 or 6 years of his interaction with Don Juan, right? And he doesn't really share all that much, as we're going to see later. He wrote copious notes, but he really only emphasized, he had it all wrong. He was in such a bubble, he got it all wrong. But now we see Carlos, he's in so far, he's completely out of his element. And Don Juan is introducing him to the power plants and the sorcery stuff, the world of Diableros. He even has an interaction with one of them. And this is all overwhelming for Carlos because he leaves off. He stops being an apprentice, right? Even though from Don Juan's point of view, nope, you're still an apprentice. No matter what you decide, you still. So, however, he now shifts to taking all of what has happened and putting it in sharing through the lens of Carlos the anthropologist, because keep in mind that this book was his doctoral thesis, right? And was a very big deal in academic circles because so much of it went against the grain. As an anthropologist, you're not supposed to get, at that time, supposed to get immersed in your fieldwork. You're supposed to stay an objective observer, blah, blah. But we're going to see this academic side come out, right? And it's too wonderful to see Carlos's attitudes, mindset, when we do capital R reading of getting Carlos's psychology, his intent, etc., right? To know Carlos via how he shares. This is a skill that Beena and I practice most assiduously, most thoroughly, and with lots of attention, regularly. We do this all the time, every day, right? This is part of capital R reading. Now we're applying capital R reading to literally reading, but you can apply it to people, and we call it capital H hearing, which really is capital P perceiving. I say the word hearing because if you shift your attention, typically our attention all is on the visual. That's how we're trained. We are visually dominated. If you shift it to your ears, you are going to suddenly hear so much more than you ever thought to hear before. And it changes your brain processing. When you listen to words specifically, right? Somebody talking, well, listen to the world as well. But you also then, you switching off the visual to a large extent, and that frees up a lot of processing power in the brain. You don't need that visual, yes? And when you're hearing what's, because now you aren't going by appearance, but meaning, which is a whole different thing. Yeah, a whole different thing. Of course, you want to feel as well, but when you are connected to meaning, feeling automatically comes into it. Yes, very powerful, very powerful. All right, please read, Beena. Please read.
Your picture is on the screen.
Did I not share? Did I not share the?
No.
Did I? Oh, I did it twice and it didn't take it. Let me try it again. There we go. Now you see only this.
It is uploading still for me. Okay, yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Now
all
it
right,
is.
go ahead.
Okay. A structural analysis. The following structural scheme, abstracted from the data on the states of non-ordinary reality presented in the foregoing part of this work, is convinced as an attempt to disclose the internal cohesion and the cognizance.
It's conceived.
Cogency. What is the word? No.
Okay, you read convinced, not conceived.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, is conceived as an attempt to disclose the internal cohesion and the cogency of the Don Juan's teaching.
Just pause right there. Right? Look at the difference in the language. But before we go to this, really quick. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma.
Hello, Norma.
Brilliant. And Norma says, yes, it is a good difference. And she emphasizes difference. And I'm assuming she's talking about the difference between deliberate habits and regular habits. It is a massive difference, and it is a very good difference. Yes, attention, deliberate attention, living deliberately, or maybe you were talking about living deliberately as the good difference. All of them very powerful, very, very powerful. The difference between way of impeccability living, which is deliberate living, and regular living, it's a massive difference. It is a massive, and it's a good difference. Does it make now, just because it's a good difference, it doesn't make regular living bad, right? It just means that we're enhancing. So why that word enhancing is so important. It means it's good, but we can enhance it even more, right? Very important. Now, Beena, just take that. Norma gives a big check mark there. Just take this very first sentence, right? And did that one right, is conceived as an attempt to disclose the internal cohesion and cogency of Don Juan's teachings. Carlos is telling us right away, I'm in full intellectual mode here, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. You're going to hear my cleverness, my smartness, my intelligence, and all of this stuff, right?
Or maybe just that he is like this, and now he is just being him. He
Yeah.
was not
Not necessarily.
being
I
him.
don't
He
think
might
this
be
is so.
apprentice for Don
Yeah.
Juan.
No, I think this is him in university mode, and he's writing this for the professors and the lecturers. Yeah. Because if you see in his interviews, he's not really like this. A little bit, but he can be. He can be. But what we'll see later on too, we see more of Carlos.
Mm.
This is not. I don't think this is his real him. Yeah. I don't know. He knew what his real him was. Yeah. Anyway, please continue.
Okay. Cushions of Don Juan's teachings. The structure, as I assess it, is composed of four concepts, which are the main units. One, man of knowledge. Two, a man of knowledge had an ally. Three, an ally had a rule. And four, the rule was corroborated by special consensus.
Yeah.
These four units are in turn composed of a number of subsidiary ideas. Thus, the total structure comprises all the meaningful concepts that were presented until the time I discontinued the apprenticeship. In a sense, these units represent successive levels of analysis, with each level modifying the preceding one.
Beena, if you look
Yes.
at those four units,
Yes.
right? Are any of those beside the first one person of knowledge? And we're going to make this non-gender specific, yes?
Yes.
We live in a different world, right? And it's really sentience of knowledge. That's truly for me how I would do it in the Nobelia world, right? It would be sentience of knowledge. Yeah? Anyway, beside that, the other three, is any of that in our notes that we pulled out, right? That we extracted and put into our quote file. The quote file, this quote file of Carlos's books, not our own personal quote file. That's a whole long other thing, right? We're quoting ourselves, right? No, none of it. We didn't do any of this with the ally. Ally had a rule. The rule was corroborated. None of that is important to us. Yeah, because it doesn't go to changing who you are. It doesn't go to character training, which that's what self-importance, self-improvement is, right? Or personal development. It's about changing who you are, which is changing your character, not your personality, your character, right? That's what a man of knowledge is all about. It is having character, not, and the word, that's why I don't use it ever, because or person of knowledge implies most people will take that to be, oh, typical intellectual, full of stuff inside their heads, can talk about anything, know a lot of stuff, well-read, erudite, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean anything. They can still be knuckleheads as people. They can still be nonsense people, not honest or given to vanity and ego and stuff like that, see? No, but so Don Juan means, with a person of knowledge, he's meaning somebody who follows the warrior's way, as he calls it. We call it way of impeccability. It's a much better term, much better. But that was his world and his language, right? He came from an era in which physical survival was still important. You had to think literally like a physical warrior, because, when he was a child still and a young man, the church could decide, whatever, you've done something, and you could call in the army and take you away and kill you. That's it. End of story, right? Hang you from a tree right there for the most ridiculous of things, right? So it's a very, very rough time. He's at the tail end of it, right? But his lineage came through even worse times, right? At least when he was young, it started to get a little bit more civilized, as it were. But still, so the whole warrior thing, it is not to be a warrior walking around with guns or spears or whatever, swords. No, but a warrior in spirit. Yeah. Anyway, we'll hear a lot more about the warrior's way, which is way of impeccability. There's a lot of similarity. Now, way of impeccability has extra sophistication to it, a lot, as in the language of conceptionality, which, Beena, I want to emphasize this because I never really used it before as a term. This language of conceptionality, what is it really? It is a high-level self-programming language. Much like you've got in computing, right? You got high-level programming languages like A++, etc., whatever. I don't know what the most recent ones are, right? Those are high-level programming language. What does it mean, a high-level programming language? The very basic programming is in machine code, where you're writing in 0, 1, and you know it will be 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, whatever, right? And then the next instruction is another set of that. Those get codified into English words, where you're saying, okay, format this, make a loop here, if this, then that. But the higher you go in your language, all of those little basic sub-programs, they get grouped together into one major overall concept. And when you write that in your programming, the language as translates it into saying, do this little mini program, do this little mini program, and it's a whole bunch of them all put together, which is exactly the same way as abstract, higher level conceptions do the same thing. Yeah. When we're talking about appropriateness, for instance, it's not a term that is independent of itself. You need to understand context, and you need to understand goal, motivation, intent. All of those three together. You could call it purpose. Yeah. You need to understand context and purpose. You see what I mean? So now you've got appropriateness as your high-level concept, but it has two little mini programs underneath it. And look at just purpose. Purpose gets broken down further into goal, motivation, intent. Yeah. See, as a separate thing. Then you say, well, what are your goals? Are they a short-term goal, a medium-term goal, a long-term goal, life goal? See, again, it gets broken down. So whenever we have these conceptions, there are sub-conceptions underneath it. Exactly the same way as a high-level programming language. But we want to go to the absolute highest possible level, which is this overview level, universal perspective. Yeah. And this is what Way of Impeccability is. This is what this language of conceptionality, which is a self-programming language. A self-programming language. We're learning to program our brain. We're learning to program our spirit. We're learning to program our body, our emotions, our habits, especially. Look at your computer. This is what a program does. It creates habits. We call them routines, but that's really what the program is. You do something and something else happens automatically. A habit, a routine. Yes? See?
Yes, yes.
We want to have this where we're in charge of our own programming, not the world, not society, and not our beliefs, not our upbringing, nothing. Doesn't make our upbringing bad. We just want to be deliberate about it. Norma says, are we born with a set character, or does it expand as our language does? Norma, your question is one which is a problematic question. Now, I will give an answer to this, but this has been a question that has been around for ages. It is nature versus nurture. But here's the problem, Norma. Your question is coming from the cultural conditioning and cultural assumption of the mentality of opposites. One of the terms in the language of conceptionality. Mentality of opposites, hyphenated, right? Capitalized. Mentality of opposites. What does this mean? The mentality of opposites is one where we assume things are either or. Your question is assuming it's either or. Does it not, Norma? Right? Or, right, are we born with a set character, or does it expand as our language does? Why is it not both? I never could understand this. From a child, I heard this thing, nature or nurture. And nobody ever said, but if you just pay attention to the reality, you see it's both. We have some factors that we come with, DNA factors, but then our environment influences us as well, right? So it's both. And furthermore, there's an extra factor which is never considered. See, multiple perspectives. That nature or nurture says, well, you're born with DNA and that's how you are, and you're going to develop according to that, right? And it was a whole big psychology around that, which completely ignores influence of environment. Yeah. And then those guys made their case, but they all get in their bubble and it's either or, right? And then, okay, some started to say it's a sort of a combination. They still missed a very, very, very critical factor. There's this assumption that when you are looking at nurture, right? Nurture, which is environment, that we are a product of our environment. That is the basic assumption. Nowhere is there any allowance for you making a difference to yourself simply because you want to, because you decide to, because you make a choice that's independent of anything else. But this is, of course, entirely and utterly possible. I know this from personal experience. I'm not a product of my environment. I'm a product of me. Sorry. I am a product of me. I got the idea to do it and I wanted to do it, and that's it. I could have not followed that path on deciding on awareness. Yeah. I mean, I got the idea to think about it, but I decided to pursue it as a path. That was my decision. And from then on, I made lots of effort and figured out and looked at how to do it. My whole life started from that decision to pursue the path of awareness, path of self-improvement. So what have I got to do with my environment? Yes, I went and looked for things that I could do, but every time I found things, I decided always. I chose what I'm going to incorporate or not incorporate. I figured it out. I didn't never just believed anybody, never. It was always just a part of me. It had to make sense to me, nothing on belief. It had to be self-evidently sensible. It had to be verified with practice, in application, practicality. So it's very important to realize and to break our mindset. Sorry, Norma, I don't mean to give you a hard time. I'm giving society a hard time. And I want to point out that where you got into that either or, right? You asked your question. It's a very good question, but that either or, this is one of the habits that we are looking to undo. It's a default way of thinking, and it's limiting. Yes, you're asking a really good question, but you're only limiting it to either or, rather than having that multiple perspective, right? Which is saying, how does this come about? How do we determine? So it's a combination of many things. It's a combination of DNA, which we can override. We absolutely can. People born with, let's say, people born to alcoholic parents, right? Alcoholism is something that is hereditary, right? However, when they're aware of this, they decide, no, I don't want anything to do with that. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go down that path. And they don't. So we don't have to accede or conform or behave according to what our DNA is. Furthermore, we absolutely do not have to follow along and conform to what our nurture, our environment is. I mean, people get born into religious environments, is probably the most common one, or societal, and they say, no, I don't want anything to do with this. Thank you very much. And they leave. Right? In the old days, it used to be called rebels. Today, it's not an issue, which is a great advance in our society. A great advance that we have this freedom to decide to go into different directions. And it's okay. People say, well, all right, you don't want to be part of this. That's fine, right? This is great. Wow. We got Sophia says, long reply to Norma. So Sophia says, replying to Norma Boswell. Norma Boswell, I'm a bit confused with something. That is why it took me a while. I see nervous or scared, unsure what to do about how to move on. You've been debating something, a move. Go forward in your decision. You need to be independent on your own changes. It's hard, even scary, but you need to have confidence in yourself and you will be fine. I feel like you're having problems with family or someone close to you. Okay, so she's basically giving, I want to read the whole thing because basically giving a psychic reading here. This is not really part of what we're doing here, Sophia. A little inappropriate in terms of this. And I'm assuming that precisely, Norma, as you're responding to me, not to Sophia, but please clarify, because it's coming after Sophia's thing there. So it came rather quickly after Sophia's thing. At the same time, 8 seconds afterwards, so I don't think that it was replying to Sophia, unless you read very, very quickly. So I assume that precisely was to what I was saying. We want to break this deepness. So, you know, Sophia, what you're writing there, that, I mean, I appreciate that, you know, you say psychic medium, Sophia. And however, you know, what you're saying could apply to almost anybody. It's not specific enough. So it doesn't mean all that much, Sophia. You know, we have a brain. Our brain, when we look at this kind of thing, it can take what your reality is and fit it to what you're saying, because what you're saying is vague enough, right? So, I mean, nervous or scared, unsure, yeah, but what to do and how to move. That applies to probably 90% of people. Now, you know, so it's your odds of being accurate are fairly high. Yeah. Yeah, but thank you for the effort. I appreciate it. Although I'm just saying, you know, this is not quite the context here, because really what you're doing is you're advertising your services, Sophia. You're not really contributing to the conversation. You're not contributing to the reading. It's a specific thing to Norma. You're zooming in on a potential client. Yeah. So not that cool, Sophia, not appropriate. Yeah, please don't do it here. If you wish to do this, then ask Norma. Ask her if she would be interested in a reading, but don't be advertising either, and don't be approaching people here to look for clients. Yeah. Don't even ask, actually, because, you know, if Norma had said, well, I'm interested in a psychic reading, fine, then you can go. But no, you got to find your clients on your own thing. Don't use our live and group membership either. Don't use this to get business. It's not allowed in group. It's soliciting, in other words, right? It's right there. No self-promotion, no soliciting, no advertising. Yeah? I mean, I appreciate it. Maybe you're coming from a very deep and genuine place. Yeah. But again, like I said, not the appropriate environment in which to do that. Yeah. 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 All right. Anyway, please continue, Beena. Please continue. Yeah, very cool. Very cool comment there. See, Norma, it's what I love about your comments or questions. There's a moreness always. So in your question, we got to the moreness of our thinking, to break out of this mentality of opposites, which is a profound psychological habit, and get into perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. Look at how I brought multiple perspective thinking into how our character is developed. Yes, many ways, many ways. Oh, very cool, very cool. Please continue, Beena. Please continue. Any comments, though, on what I was saying before you continue?
No, it's all good in the context, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So where were we actually? Okay, preceding our, okay. Because this conception.
1 second. Sorry. Yeah, we're on the second paragraph, but Sher made a comment. And Sher says, what to do or how to move? It's almost a daily question that I addressed daily until I allowed attunement to draw my awareness. I ask now, where am I at? Exactly. You know, sure, again, here is where multiple perspective shifting comes into it. Yes, and not going by the either or limitations, right? Because that was it. You had profound questions, what to do or how to move, but that was a limited choice of options. You're going either or, but either or is a choice between two options when usually there's multiple choices. Right now, yes, the problem with choices in when it comes to what to do and how to move. Those questions typically, the answer comes from my internal decision making and my eternal awareness and my ability to make decisions. Basically, what you're asking yourself is, what is the best thing for me to do? How the hell do I know? How do I know what is best for me? I don't have access to universal information. I can do what I think is best for me. That's the best I can do. because I have limited information. So essentially, whatever I decide based on my own internal stuff, and maybe other opinions as well, doesn't matter. Whatever we're doing is always going to be limited in terms of the potential possibilities, because we don't have access to universal information. This is why we live in attunement, because attunement can, through force of circumstances, anomalies, and all the other things that come with attunement, yes, attunement can put you on a path that you never, ever, ever would have guessed would be profound. Look at when I ended up in the desert, middle of nowhere, with nothing, no car, no phone, no nothing, right? No electricity, no water, none of that, right? And you say, oh my God, disaster. No, it was the most profoundly magical, awesome, fantastic thing ever. But could I have chosen that if I'd known? No. When we got there, right, the movers kept saying, are you sure you want to stay? Are you sure you want to stay? And we knew we had to stay. And it was clear every time. Yes, absolutely. Why? Because we were there because of attunement. But I think attunement was also the universe, deeper intent, whatever you want to call it, was making sure that I am choosing this deliberately. I'm not just doing it because, well, you know, I'm stuck. I'm kind of have to. No, it was a deliberate choice. And that made all the difference, that deliberate choice. So this is very key. This is very key. Attunement is attunement requires attention. It requires being aware of everything that's going on around you, because you are looking to see the flow, the pattern, the rhythm of life. But you can't see all of life. You can only see it via your experience of it, which is a small part. But you can connect to the greater flow and pattern by only hearing a part. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. So this is we're not just seeing the specific details. We're looking at the abstract, the rhythm, the flow, the pattern, the harmony, and we are looking to join into that. Yeah? Very important. And Shah says yes. So we hear and we feel precisely. We perceive. We perceive. Yeah. It is a surrender in a way, yes. I'm not a great fan of this word, but as you mean it, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, fantastic question. Fantastic question, Norma. That says, sure, but yes. Beena, please share. Please share. I haven't heard from you, and I'm keen to hear from you.
No, I was just listening this whole conversation. Okay, not conversation. Okay, indirectly, yes, which shares comment and of course Norma. I personally feel that Norma's question was kind of like, yes, it was valid. It was a valid question. This is how.
Oh, it's a very good question. It's a
Yes,
fantastic
yes,
question.
because and also valid. Not only like okay, it's a
Correct,
good question,
correct,
but also
correct.
a valid question because
Yeah.
this is how we all grew up. And if she was asking, I personally feel that it was not a flawed question because she was
No,
not
no.
saying that it has to be. She was not coming from the should, but she was just asking that, okay, is this how these things are? Yes,
Yeah.
as a way of impeccability, and of course, not only way of impeccability, but as a moreness practitioner, you always come with like, okay, why to have all these things? Yes, it could be this and it could be that. But as someone who is just entering, I can relate to this question that okay, is it innate to us or not? Okay, yes, it could be, of course,
right.
And it could not be. Yes, we might develop this. Again, it depends on the description we have and we acquire for the character, what we understand by the character itself. Of course, only this can give us the real understanding about this question, because how we develop our character, can we develop it or is it innate? First question. And second, okay, what we inherit in our DNA, does it affect on our character? Okay. Or the personality override the character? Okay, many questions actually, so it's a very important question.
But you see, Beena, how your discussion now, your discernment of what Norma's question is, was basically concerned, and you were looking at the options on either of those two choices. What about the choices of choice? You see the problem that I was saying. We have to think beyond the limitations of either or, because choice is a third option, and it's the most profound option of all.
Without having awareness or understanding or complete understanding in your childhood, okay, like before the age of 4, Still some children, okay, we said, oh, it is innate to him or her. And this is how they were, this is how they are. Some are impatient, some are very always loving and caring and all things. So you can see things, but can we say that it was a character? Not
No,
necessarily, because
no,
even as a child, we absorb a lot from our
exactly.
environment. So that's why it is
Incredible
okay.
amount, incredible amount. Yes.
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 So, and of course, heredity counts like really,
No,
really big time. I have seen in people
no,
that okay, they are super fine, but something, yes, it is
no,
there. Of
no.
course, you can't help it. What you can do
Just
is,
from, okay.
yes,
No, no, go
you
ahead.
cannot completely eliminate this, but
Correct.
yes, awareness and your personality and your
No,
deliberateness
no, no,
can
no,
make it mold
no,
into
no, no,
something valuable.
no.
So yes, it
Um,
is going to be there.
yes. Emphasis is the determiner.
Hmm.
Emphasis is the determiner. You can see if you really pay attention and observe, and especially if you go back into your own self as well. If you look at what affected you and what changed you, was things that were particularly emphasized. Now, when you are very young, we don't necessarily remember the emphasis, but even as babies, you catch on to something, and for whatever reason, it gets to be emphasized in you and it changes your brain. Now, that very first thing that gets emphasized and changes the brain, it leads to the brain now having a tendency towards something. And then from there, you get more and it starts to feed off of itself, right? And that's just the way the brain works. Now, of course, you can reverse that later on with emphasis into something else, but we can get things that really set us in a way and predetermine, it seems like, but really it can come from something that it's been clearly shown that even babies in the womb, they hear stuff from outside, right?
Yes.
We don't know always what is going to.
Chinese understanding about children is that okay, they are already 9 months old. They don't consider
Exactly,
them one
exactly,
day old baby. Yes.
exactly, right. Now the key point that I want to make is when it comes to emphasis, right, when you are young, right? In general, not necessarily always, but in general, emphasis is something that is, there's no hard or fast. You cannot say specifically what will get emphasized. Me as a parent, I might try very hard to be emphasizing something, but that emphasis might not catch with the child. Think of yourself. When I grew up, man, obedience was emphasized like crazy. I
Oh
wasn't a
yes.
disobedient child. I was a very good child. I wasn't. Yeah. However, I always was only obedient simply because it was a survival issue. You
Hmm.
might as well say I was obedient to my hunger. It had the same logic to it. Yeah. I'm
Hmm.
doing it because I sort of have to. But it was never that I'm being obedient because I think obedience is a good thing to be obedient. No, I thought, or at least the thing itself, yes, whatever I was asked to do, a lot of stupid things in that culture, but I did it simply because I had no other choice, really. But I never agreed with it, right? So internally, I was disobedient. So as much as that obedience was emphasized over and over and over again, it never stuck with me. Yeah? Whereas some other children, obedience was so emphasized, they could not help themselves but be obedient. So I'm simply saying that even when you are very young, you whatever the society emphasizes isn't necessarily, and same thing on their religious views, never stuck with me. And that was emphasized up to Kazoo. Oh my goodness. I mean, it was a very religious society, the first one that I was in. So we don't know, that's my point. We don't know what is going to grab us by way of emphasis. Look now, even today, right? Sometimes we are affected by something and other times not. The key is we want to be aware of this so that we can choose when emphasis comes. Is this an emphasis that I wish to change my brain or not? That's the key. That's the key. But what resonates with us, what grabs us, what gets emphasized. This is somewhat of a mystery. Yeah, it can be quite random. Again, we need to pay attention to attunement also, right? Very powerful. Attunement is an incredible philosophy of living, way of being. It's a magical thing. I mean, it's a lot to attunement. I mean, we throw out the word here, but you know, the whole last part of Way of Impeccability is all about attunement. Yeah, it's not a simple deal. There's a lot going on to attunement, you know, especially paying attention to anomalies, paying attention to force of circumstance, paying attention to your awareness. Am I really paying attention to pattern and rhythm and the greater flow of things? Am I in harmony with that? And my motivations? You cannot be attuned and live in attunement if you're not practicing Way of Impeccability. You need to be able to have set aside your personal agendas. I can't trust my personal agendas. I cannot. Sorry. I have limited information. I can't trust them. But to set aside personal agenda, this is quite difficult. It's very difficult. Anyway, please continue, Beena. Please continue. Does that help and elucidate a bit, Beena? I want to know from Norma and Sher as well. Yeah.
Okay, for me, I don't know why the helping thing is coming, but because I have a clarity about this, at least right now. Of course, there is always more. You were sharing your perspective that about what you think of about the Norma's question. My emphasis was not what you were sharing itself, that okay, this is the character, but it was like about what you were saying about the Norma's question, which I personally feel that okay, it was absolutely a brilliant question, because we need to be aware of about that what is our character and what is our personality and how the character actually built. Which made me realize when you were saying a lot about obedience that I was not, in my mind, I was not an obedient person. I was not. Because whenever it was coming to something, when they were saying, I was like, okay, yes, so why I'm going to do this? And the questions were like really a big thing in my life, and it still is.
Wonderful.
So I asked questions like, okay, why? And then they say, okay, because of this thing. And I said, okay, so now without being aware of choice, I was making it my choice. And I was like, okay, yes, so this is what I'm doing, which might not be all the time. I was just like, okay, doing things a lot of because of shoulds, doing a lot of things because of should, which is possible. But in my mind, I was assuming that this is something I'm doing. And I always enjoy whatever I was doing at the time. So I was not the obedience. Even I was an obedient one. I was not aware of it. In my mind, I was like, no. So because I asked question and I choose it. So that's why, which is very good. So good. Okay. Let's continue with this.
Yeah.
But again, another value, as you were mentioning about, that Norma bring a lot of moreness to this life today.
Norma brings tremendous, always. Norma's questions and comments have a magic to them. There's always a moreness to it. It's quite something. It's really special. It's fantastic. Yeah. Very brilliant. Because Norma's heart is so deep, you see, and the same with Sher also. It's just they come out in different ways, of course, and that's the magic of difference. It's so brilliant. It's so awesome. It's so fantastic. So fantastic.
Yes. Okay. Because this conceptual structure is completely dependent on the meaning of all its units, the following clarification seems to be pertinent at this point. Throughout this entire work, meaning has been rendered as I understood it. The component concepts of Don Juan's knowledge, as I have presented them here, could not be the exact duplicate of what he said himself. In spite of all the effort I have put forth to render these concepts as faithfully as possible, their meaning has been deflected by my own attempts to classify them. The arrangement of the four main units of this structural scheme is, however, a logical sequence which appears to be free from the influence of extraneous classificatory devices of my own. But insofar as the component ideas of each main unit are concerned, it has been impossible to discard my personal influence. At certain points, extraneous extraneous
Yeah,
accomplished. Here, it had to be done by zigzagging back and forth from the alleged meanings and classificatory scheme of the teacher to the meanings and classificatory devices of the apprentice. Very, very good,
yeah,
Carlos, to have resentment
yeah,
about this.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And if such a task was to be accomplished here, it had to be done by zigzagging back and forth from the alleged meanings and classificatory scheme of the teacher to the meanings and classification devices of the apprentice. In way of impeccability terminology, in the language of conceptionality, how would we say that? Much simpler.
Say it again, sir.
Right. This last sentence, right? And
Yes.
if such a task was to be accomplished here, it had to be done by zigzagging back and forth from the alleged meanings and classificatory scheme of the teacher to the meanings and classificatory devices of the apprentice. What is he saying? What is he saying? What is he saying in how would we say this? We would say it, at least in the language of conceptionality. What Carlos is saying, it is necessary for the apprentice to make things their own.
Yes.
Right? This is the point, right? So he writes it in a very complicated and classificatory scheme and all this. To say it's a classificatory device, that's still putting it on your hard drive. You're not making it your own in your body, right? The meaning and the practice that changes you. But see, Carlos is not thinking here even about changing as a person. This is not his goal. His goal is simply to take the information and arrange it in a way that makes sense to him. It doesn't mean anything. How you arrange it, Carlos, makes absolutely no difference to you as a person. You'll be able to remember it easier. Yes, you'll be able to connect to it and understand it easier, but that doesn't mean it's changing you. Yeah. So this is where way of impeccability goes deeper, and the psychology is more profound. Because otherwise you could default to doing what Carlos is doing, classify the information, arrange it, sort it so that, well, you can sort of understand it and remember it better. That doesn't change you. You've got to apply it, make it your own, and then apply it, because you can't apply if it's not your own. Or you can try to, but it's not very effective. Yeah. So sure. Oh, I did respond there. Yes. Sure was saying I was raised that obedience was not an option. It was unthinkable to not follow directions. Yes, sure. Same for me. And I said in my comment there that split, the idea that I got from that memorable event, right? It stimulated in me. Again, it came internally. It's not what that boy said, but that is what resulted in me. And I chose to live according to that idea. It could have come and gone, but to have a social side and a public side. And that saved me, because publicly, of course, I didn't get into trouble. I was obedient, but I was never obedient. I just didn't get into trouble. There's a big difference. Yeah? Internally in your psychology. But privately, I thought all of the stuff around me was the biggest load of rubbish and nonsense. I remember our principal making, in that first school, making an announcement come exam time, end of the year exams. And he said, well, it's end of the exams, and this is very serious, it's very important, and you're not allowed to go out to the streets in the afternoon. You've got to stay home and study. Right? And this was when I was in first grade. And I'm like, dude, you've got authority over us in the school. You have no authority over us after school. You can't, this is not your job. You can't be saying we got to go. It was the culture at the time. Nobody batted an eyelid of it, right? But I remember thinking this so clearly, that you're out of line here. That's not your province. Yeah, if that's up to me and my parents, right? So just to give an idea of how strict this was, right? And everybody followed it, of course. There were no school, no children out on the streets after school. Preposterous stuff. We talk about obedience culture, right?
Yes.
All right. So Carlos says, for outline of the units of my structural analysis, see Appendix B. Oh, we're getting into full intellectual mode now. Appendixes, Beena? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it appendix or pendi? I don't know. I don't know if it's appendixes or pendi. Anyway, the operative order. Ooh, the first unit. I love this. I got a great kick out of this when I read this, right? This whole intellectual vibe. Yeah, very, very amusing. But yeah, obedience culture, very powerful stuff.
Okay, still, it's 11.
Oh, we can go a little more. Oh, all right. Let's see. How long is this? Yeah, all right. Let's leave it till tomorrow. Let's leave because it's
Yes.
a long thing. So yeah, it's a good point to do. And we have that meeting for the board member meeting. So at coming up. So yeah, oh, very cool, very cool. And we have a few things to do. So I love it. I love it. Sure. And Norma, I think Norma said she had to leave in a private message there. She's
Oh,
feeling
okay.
so she had to go. So she'll come back and she'll take care of it. You know, look, she always comes later. So. Sure, any comments before we go? If you're still here, sometimes Sure also has to leave soon because she's got clients or other things going on. So, any comments if you're there, Sure, or any comments, Beena?
Oh, yes. Again, the emphasis on the power of question, because she asked an earnest question and it brings out so much. Yes, we read a bit. Okay, yes, less what we were expecting it to be, but it is good. Again, Cher was talking about attunement, and this is how the attunement works for us also.
Yeah,
Okay, yes. So whatever is
yeah,
coming in our way, profoundly, of course, that yes, we
yes,
followed that, and that is
yes,
this is so wonderful because it gives
yes,
you to think
yes,
more about it. And whenever we are thinking about something specific, like character and how what actually our character is, and other questions, it is the start of being deliberate in that aspect of your life, and this is
yes,
how it's going to
yes,
be. So yes, so
yes,
wonderful,
exactly.
so
Exactly.
potent.
Before we wrap up here, Sure said no questions. I would highly recommend, and I'm assuming this is going to happen anyway. I'm looking forward to seeing posts from you that are sharing your experience of attunement and the deliberate awareness necessary for attunement and what that means. In other words, what are you paying attention to now that you were not paying attention to at previous times in your lives? In your lives, I said multiple, but in your life, right? That difference is a very profound difference. Where we're shifting the attention, paying what exactly? Things like pattern and rhythm and flow, right? And the harmony of things and how to connect to that, yes, and anomalies. These are all things that we're paying attention to when we're living in attunement that we never ever paid any attention to before, right? The flow of life, specifically the flow of life as to how it is interacting and impacting on you. Let's put it this way. When you see a river, right, and you're on the bank of the river, yes, where we are at is in the eddy, yeah, but but we don't want to just be stuck in that eddy. So you could say, well, I'm attuning to the eddy. The point is we have to understand and expand our awareness to be able to go from the eddy and connect to the river and the greater flow of the river in its totality. Yes? See? So when we are paying attention to the eddy, which is the things that are happening around us, we need to be aware it is an eddy. And we're always kind of in an eddy to some extent, yeah? And we want to get into that greater flow. So we need to have this understanding that the pattern that's around us can be an eddy. It may be that we're in the main flow, but we want to look at things and see the connectivity, right? And that eddy may be, all right, I'm in the flow of the river and we come to a bend in the river. And it's worthwhile for us to get out of that flow and get onto the bank for a little bit. So now attunement moves me to the side of the main flow and starts to bring the eddy into it. I can resist that and resist being pulled into the bank or not. Attunement will give me that indication to say, oh no, this is a good way to go. Again, I'm floating happily down the mainstream and something happens and it says, get out of the mainstream. And I'm like, but why? It's so nice here. I'm flowing wonderfully down the river. Well, and then I resist that anomaly that said get out. And the next thing is a waterfall up ahead, a very big steep one. I see now why I have to get out of the flow. You see my point? What I'm saying is we really need to pay attention and we need to trust what we don't know. We need to trust in what we don't know. And this is a very difficult thing to do. We typically only trust in what we know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I hear you. I hear you, Sher says, oh no, questions meaning about the discussion. I heard that, yes. Yes. But I always have questions, of course. We always have questions. This is the magic, like Beena says, you know, questions are love notes from the universe. Questions is what connects us to that moreness. Questions is what leads to choice. Questions is what leads to decisions. Questions is what leads to discernment, to awareness, to understanding, to application. Yeah. It expands us, it enhances us. Questions are fantastic, they're profound. But I'm very keen to hear about your journey into attunement. I'm very keen to hear, very keen to hear. And you know, the awareness that results from it, not just the awareness, but the specific attention. Like I said, you know, we really need to understand this, and that analogy of the river is a very good analogy for attunement. Yes. And also like surfing. Surfing, when the surfers paddle left and right like that across the waves, they're trying to position themselves to where the wave is going to peak and where it's going to break. It's not always in the same place, right? And why are they positioning themselves, attuning to the waves, so that they can catch the wave? Yeah? Or not. If a wave comes and it's not going to peak somewhere, it's just going to break all at once. You can't really surf those waves. And if it's a big one, you have to paddle further out so that you don't get dumped by the wave. Yeah. See, so attunement is all about the intent to be able to align with the forces of the world, align appropriately, which is catching the wave, surfing it. Yeah, that's aligning. So attunement goes hand in hand with alignment. That's why on my mind map, you've got the 3 A's. Well, there are a lot of A triangles, but the A when it comes to attunement is attunement at the top, alignment, and anomalies. Yeah, those are the 3 that go in there. So we want to really be paying attention to, why am I attuning? Because I want to align to some force of the world, force of life, some happenstance, some path, right? In some way aligning to something or other that is going to now, like the wave, that I can ride and take me somewhere. Yeah. Or in my analogy of the river, do I want to be aligned with the mainstream, or do I want to be aligned with the eddy that takes me to the bank for a while? And then, okay, when I'm done with the bank, I get back in the river. Do I want to stay in the eddy, or do I want to get back into the mainstream? Now, again, those questions, do I want to? For me personally, and the whole logic and philosophy of attunement is, I don't go with what I personally want, because my personal wants and desires are determined by very small local factors. I don't have access to the bigger picture. So what I do is not determined by me, but by attunement, by the force of circumstance, the pressures, the waves coming at me. Yes, I might decide if I want to ride the wave or not. But typically that decision is also one that is presented to me from attunement. Yeah. And it's an incredible way to live, because I'm living according to a higher sensibility than the sensibility of my limited mind, psychology, motivations, goals. It's an incredibly different way to live. I mean, it's completely revolutionary. People will think you mad to say, yeah, but how can you not live according to your decisions? All right, in that conservative societies that we grew up, yes, small capital A's, exactly. In that conservative society we grew up, to live according to your own decisions was heretical. No, you got to live according to the church and society and religion. Yeah, you were not allowed to think for yourself. The 11th commandment, as I call it, it was never said specifically, but it was there all the time. Thou shalt not question. Obedience culture. Horrible, 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 horrible. Yes. And if you look at that, the 3 A's, sure, you've got appropriateness, attunement, awareness, and those are the main core triangle, right? And all of that leads to application. So you've got this main triangle of 3 A's. Then awareness has its own 3 A's. You've got awareness, attention, and appreciation. And then on the other side, you've got, well, it's not comparison, just happened to be, it got attunement, alignment, and anomalies, right? Yeah, exactly. Sher says, you can understand my shock, she says, when I learned I can choose my way of living. Yes. It's a profound revelation. It is a profound revelation. I completely and utterly understand. I was so fortunate, and I really feel that that the awarenesses that I had as a very young child, like that for the private and the public self, that came from appropriateness. That was the awareness. How is it appropriate to deal with a circumstance? Well, that was it, right? I feel it's a carryover. If you go into physics, they say there's no actual linear time, there's no past and future. Everything happens in one single moment, right? And I feel somehow I'm able to pull stuff from the future, or maybe a past life. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I wasn't connecting to it. Wasn't environmental, and it certainly wasn't something in my past experience either. There was nothing to stimulate that. And I've thought about this for much, and that's the only way I can think of it. Either that I was somehow able to connect to the future, or that it came from a previous carryover from some other thing. So very powerful, but very useful. And two, it's about emphasis, because I'm emphasizing appropriateness so much. It's so deep in me that it's going to carry over, because I think the things that carry over are things that are intrinsic to us, that have become so part of us. They're so deep that they become DNA, as it were, rather than the things we know that do not carry over, which is memory. So change your being, not to remember stuff, but to be stuff, to really resonate in a full depth, to understand the importance of something like appropriateness. I don't have to remember appropriateness. It is deeply intrinsic, right, Beena? Same with you, yes? Beena?
Yes.
I'm saying you don't have to remember appropriateness as a concept. It's just automatic
No,
in you. It's innate. It's just who you are now, correct?
exactly.
And should you come into some new environment, some new situation where you don't remember Beena, it's so deeply in you, it's going to come out, whether you remember Beena or not. In other words, whether you remember your personality stuff and history and all of that. None of that
Okay.
really matters. None of it really matters.
No,
Yeah,
like daily,
yeah.
what I practice here is just being appropriate, because this is not
Exactly.
something, of course, I do. This is
Exactly.
something not I ever done before in my life.
Yes.
And
Yes.
okay, but
And
it is like
attunement.
exactly it is.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, it is
Yeah.
going to come. And also, as we were
Yes.
discussing before, that for attunement and for appropriateness, the two things are
Yeah.
the basic need of it. The most
Yeah.
most most important is trust, capital
Correct.
T, trust,
Correct.
not into you, in
Correct.
yourself only,
Trust.
but for all in
Yes.
general, that yes, it is going to be okay, and of course I'm going to be. And of
Yeah.
course the clarity of intent, again coming back to the same point which with
Always.
which we started,
Always. Always.
that yes,
Bye
the
bye, Syl. Bye
clarity of
bye,
it.
Syl says she has to go, and we're
Oh
gonna wrap
yes,
it up. Yes.
yes,
Very, yeah.
yes,
Bye bye.
yes. And then of course the third thing is impeccability. Okay, I'm saying it in don't take it as okay, the impeccability is lesser or in order or something. No, the way it
Oh.
comes. So anyway, so impeccability. If you are trying to be impeccable, then you cannot be mean or bad or nasty or foolish.
Exactly.
So
You
that
can't.
this is like,
Exactly.
yes, you might not
Exactly.
be like really good or perfect, okay, which is okay, no problem. Of course, it will come with
Okay.
practice and time, but
Yeah.
you will not be foolish, you will not be inappropriate, you will not be
Yeah.
bad or mean or nasty in any way. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Everything else
Yeah.
will come, of course, after practice, and you cannot compete with the practice and experience, and you should not again. So everything is good. Don't get into
Yeah.
the ego nonsense that, oh, I must be perfect all the time. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm learning.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a
Yeah.
freedom
Yeah.
right there. Anyway, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
no
Shir.
worries.
It's really really
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Norma, for your wonderful question. And also, thank you
Yes.
so much, everyone, whoever is going to watch us recorded on YouTube or on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Please, if you find some value,
Yeah.
if you really like that, please do click and subscribe to this channel, and of course hit the notification bell also. By doing that, you are deliberately going to train the online algorithm that this is the value, this kind of content I want more in my life, which is of course ultimately going
Yeah.
to affect your life algorithm. They are actually the same. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.
Yes. Bye bye, everybody. See you tomorrow. All right. End meeting. End meeting for all.